Hello everyone! I actually pre-translated the entire prologue for Heart no Kuni no Alice, the Wonderful Twin World game, the fandisc between the first game and the second game. So we'll actually be starting the events and then trying to get on a route come the next video for this one. It's going to be a huge update. I don't know how many videos.
プレゼンテッドバイクイーンロゼン。ハートの国のアリス、ワンダフルツインワールド。
We're just going to enter in our name, which stays default Alice. And then it's going to ask us where we want to go. Now, I chose the amusement park for the game that I'm pre-translating for you on my PSP. For this game. Now, in this game, we do have the option to go to the clock tower. I was a little surprised. So we might actually try that one the next run through on this. Okay, it opens up and Alice is being told, like, that's why you say you don't like it? They're trying to pressure her right now. There was a loud voice that was raised, so not to be lost in the sound of the wind. And she is like, my throat has already been screaming since the last time, but I can't seem to care. She's like, never dislike it. If you let go, I'll be fine. I never said I disliked it. And Boris actually comments here, he's like, say it again, I really want you to say it again, that you want to do this. He's bullying her. And then Gallon pops in and he's like, that's right, I don't like it, I don't like it, don't be mean, be honest. They're like, imitating her and trolling her. And then the other one's like, it's meaningless. This smells like an uncle scheme. That's what I got out of that, like her responding to Gallon saying it. And he's like, I don't have any such intentions. That was him saying, I don't have any such intentions. And as usual, she's like, Galland, called Uncle, is lightly dented, but I can't care. I mean, I didn't mean to joke. She's like, after all, this is life or death, and so I've become desperate. I'll go below the belt on this one, is what she's saying. And she's like, I am now at an amusement park. However, there are no feet on the supposedly colorful ground. She's like, I am now on a high platform looking down on the ground. There is a single board that protrudes along the top. High steel towers have narrow scaffolding. And that in front of me is like a diving board, or just is a diving board. Yes, this is ... a bungee jumping board. I'm saying let me go. I don't want to jump off, she tells him. She actually scratched Boris. He's like, wow, I'm hurting. My arm is scratched, Alice. And she's like, so what? She's like, I don't want to do this. And she's like, because it's desperate resistance, it will not be punishable. So if it's life and death that are at stake, I could become violent. He's like, what's wrong? Like, why don't you want to do this? And Gallen's like, she's a ferocious girl, seriously. But if I try it, it's definitely fun, isn't it? And she's like, disagreeable. I do not agree with this. She's like, seriously, please forgive me, but I don't want to do this. The bungee jump is newly established in the amusement park, and it is recommended that the two go down together and jump eagerly. But she's like, I keep rejecting this with all of my heart. And she explains that this is Heart Country, so Heartland, a fun, noisy, dreamy world where strange things and legends fly about. One day, suddenly, I came here with a white rabbit, Peter White, who appeared in my garden. It was this world where a deep hole came and I fell with the white rabbit. She's like, here, violence is a daily thing, and almost all residents are carrying weapons. They shake them about easily. She's like, the inhabitants are divided into a class with the important role of contained and those with a role, and then those as a non-person, non-role, called no face, no role. So she's explaining that the populace, like the people that represent the seconds on the clock, have no face and that they're like a non-person to people here. And the only people that matter are the role holders, which represent the faces on the clock. So like the hour hands. So she's like, the face of the actors are clearly visible. But the faces of those who have no roles are dim and cannot be seen clearly without attention. Because their existence is light, it cannot be seen. And she's like, a strange world where my common sense doesn't communicate, like, across properly to them. She's like, it may not be like a dream, but it is actually a real dream. And when I first came to this world, a person told me that, she's like, ... I have to believe them and think it's so. She's like, it feels dreamy, ... A world that may be a dream. And at first, I was trying to go back to my original world, but for various reasons, I decided to stay in this world. Here, I am called the outsider. In parentheses. I didn't like it, but I accepted it. And she's like, all that remains is the place where I'm staying. I also like the amusement park. She thinks to herself, I wish I had gone home though, right now. She's like, I think so from the bottom of my heart. She's like, to be exact, the two that I'm living with lean together towards me. And she trails off because they're like trying to force her to do this right now. Afterwards, like her little monologue to herself, Gowland comments to her. He's like, what? What is it, Alice? And she's like, Mary E. Galland, the landlord of the amusement park and also the owner, says that while trying to put a belt for the bungee jumping on my waist. She's like, Mary E. Galland, the real name is a joke. The person himself seems to be embarrassed, and it is a taboo issue to address this. He has unusual clothes, unusual hairstyles, and a murderous musical sense. To shorten it and to speak, or so to speak, he's my friendly brother / possible dad for that type, or he's that type. And if you don't have him play the violin, you can have a good time, but sometimes you'll be forced to listen to it. And it's murderous. Galland's like, look, get your arms out. There's no problem if you fasten this belt, so don't refuse. They're still trying to get her to bungee jump. And she's like, I have decided to refuse. She's like, if you hold your back firmly with both hands and guard for them, you'll hear a voice from the opposite side of Galland. Boris is like, where were you going? Trying to go home? There's no way back other than jumping with us. And she's like, Boris Ere, the amusement park's beloved friend, laughs in a sarcastic tone. He's a pink Cheshire cat. Boris Elre, or Ere. He's a shocking shade of pink, and his fur hurts my eyes, although I'm used to it now. She's like, it is not uncommon for the residents to have animal ears and a tail in this world. He is one of them. The personality of a cat itself is capricious and free. He is smart and always has a cynical laugh. He's like, or she's explaining that he likes riddles and guns and is speed crazy. The amusement park attractions have been remodeled one after another by him, and he's been beaten by Galland for it. She's like, it's natural if you remove the brakes or speed it up by ignoring the speed limit that this would happen, because that's what Boris does with the attractions at the amusement park. And she's like, what are you saying? If I go down the stairs that we came up, ... Because she's like, you hauled me up here. And she's like, I looked at the stairs that we used to come up here, but there's 2 employees standing there, blocking the way. She's like, I can't go home? What? ... Boris is like, we've trapped you here. There's no choice but to play in order to go home. He's like, bungee jumping is thrilling and fun. What's so disgusting about it, Alice? She's like, there's no fun! ! And she's like, no, it may be fun. ... She's like, I also like screaming attractions. The bungee jump is similar to that. But that's the story if the bungee jump is guaranteed to be safe and enjoyable. She's like, so I already know that you can't rely on new work that's been developed here to be safe. A roller coaster that floats off the rails, and a buffet that stops in the middle of rotation. I have watched many new attractions that become extremely dangerous. She's like, bungee jumping! ! What if the link of the rope is wrong? She's like, you can't get drunk and do this. She's like, the simplicity of jumping with one's body is equal the risk. There are also questions about skirts and hair. It would seem to impact it And then she's like, but this is a trivial matter compared to my life.
大丈夫だって。俺とボリスはもう試してみて、その時は問題なかったんだから。
Gallon's like, it's okay. Boris and I had no problem at the time when we tried it. She's like, you can't trust it after just trying it 2 or 3 times.
なんでだよ、固くなだな。せっかくあんたにも楽しんでもらおうと思ったのにさ。
He's like, why are you being so stubborn? Well, I thought that you would have fun with it.
そうだよ。一般に公開しだしたらしばらくは行列が引かないから、その時に遊びたくなっても遅いぜ。
And Gallon comments back, he's like, that's right, with Boris. And he's like, once you release it to the general public, the line, it will be drawn for quite a while. And so it's too late if you want to play it later. And he's like, question mark, don't you want to play it? And she's like, well, if you hear it from Gallon, then I can't really say anything. She's like, you don't have to have it closed. If I'm going to try it, it'll be after it's been run over and over again, and I'm sure that it's safe. So she's like, no, I don't want to do it right now, so that's fine with me, like what you said. I'll wait until everyone else has done it. And she's like, although it may be a problem to make a customer look bad, ... She's like, what if they die instead of me? However, because new attractions are being developed more and more here, there was a feeling that time is now in this world. Even ordinary people are too safe and casual about this. Because they don't care about their lives there. And she's like, I don't regret it if I don't try it now, so I won't. Like, I'll pass. She's like, anyway, this time is a pass. ... She's like, I miss the ground right now. Even if I'm not connected to a rope, it is at a high altitude where I'm not used to this at the present. And I'm also in front of a jumping platform. She's like, no way. She's like, I tried to be conscious or not conscious of it, but when it returned to me, fear had crept up all the way from my feet. She's like, I want to go home. I want to go home. She's like, I really don't think I'm in my original world, but anyway, I might be on Earth, ...
やれやれ、仕方ないな。それじゃ、特別サービスしてやるよ。
Boris says here that you can do it. It can't be helped though, since you're special, ... And she's like, it was Boris who said this, as if he was amazed that I wouldn't jump, looking at employees waiting in front of the stairs.
もう一組持ってきて。俺が一緒に降りる。
He's like, please bring another set. We'll be off together. She's like, what?
ああ、そうだな。それがいい。二人乗りはまだ試してないが、設計上は問題ないはずだしな。
And Gallon's like, oh yes, that's a good idea. I haven't tried 2-seaters yet, so a brand new one that they're doing a test run. He's like, but it shouldn't be a problem in the design. She's like, what?
わかりました。少しだけお待ちください。
And the employee, he's like, okay, please just wait a little while. And a stoneworker, one of his employees, moves to the back of the tower there. The other person is left in front of the stairs that were blocking it. She's like, wait, riding 2 people, ... It doesn't matter if it's changed the name of it. It still has the same meaning, right? That we jump. She's like, and they've never tried it? There shouldn't be any design problems, exclamation mark. Question? She's like, no way. If that's the case, single passenger is still better because they've at least tried that one. She's like, even considering weight and reaction, 2 people are more dangerous than 1 to do this on a bungee cord.
腰のベルト同士をつなげばいいんだよね、おっさん。
And he's asking Uncle, like, Osan, he's like, what should I do
Oh,
if I connect the belts on my waist? Like, what's next?
ああ、そうだ。 フックでがっちり固定できるはずだから問題ねえだろ。
And Galen's like, oh yes, it shouldn't be a problem if you're able to fix it firmly with the hook, so do that. She's like, Galen and Boris are talking freely about this, just steamrolling over her. She's like, hey, I don't want to be in a two-seater! Exclamation mark, ... She's like, exclamation!
お待たせしました。はい、予備のベルトです。
And then the employee came back and he's like, thank you for waiting. Yes, I have a spare belt for you. The employee comes back and blocks my voice from being heard. He's carrying a black rubber belt in his hand, the same that I'm trying to press away from me. Rather than tying up from the ankle, it's a seatbelt that supports 4 points on the body. As Galen says, the waist belt also has a hook-like part for what Boris needed.
ありがとう。じゃ、俺はこっちつけるから。おさん、その子を頼むぜ。
And Boris is like, thank you, we'll be off, uncle. Or old man, because that's kind of like interchangeable.
おう、わかった。お前、手伝ってくれ。
He's like, oh, I know. Hey, help me, come over here.
はーい。
And he was addressing his employee because the employee just said, yes! Exclamation mark. And she's like, instead of Boris leaving, the person who brought the belt wanders over besides him, the employee. She's like, this time Galen and the employees were steadily carrying the weight, and she's like, they look serious as two adult men, and you don't want to be an enemy.
覚悟を決めろってアリス。一回飛んでみたらやみつきになること間違いなしだから。
Galen's like, Alice, decide to be prepared. If you try to fly once, there is no doubt that it will be addictive. She's like, I won't want to do that. I'll die before that happens. ... Exclamation mark.
死なねえよ。万一のことがあってもボリスが一緒なら心配ねえだろ。
And Galen's like, you won't die. If anything happens, Boris will be there together with you, so you don't have to worry. And she's like, don't accept the possibility even occurring. I don't want to go. And she's like, after all, he's untrustworthy.
いや、例えばの話だろ。もちろんそんな心配はねえって。安全だ、安全。
Galen's like, no, for example, if anything happens, of course, don't worry about that. It's safe. He trails off in between. Just like, cutting himself off, dodging it.
そうそう。俺と一緒にダイブしようぜ、アリス。なんか俺の方がワクワクしてきた。
Okay, so he's like, yes, let's go diving. Go diving with me, Alice. And she's like, I don't like it. I don't want to do this. He grabbed her. The arm that she tried to take away was wiped out between the gaps. So Galen's hand had turned her around to Boris's waist and wrapped her around with the belt forcefully. She's like, it's tightened in a matter of 5 seconds. She's like, lies. I told you to stop. Exclamation mark, question. She's like, what's going on?
はい、これで OK。俺が後ろからあんたを支えてあげるから。
Boris is like, yes, this is okay. I will support you from behind, so this is how it should work. She's like, it seems that the hook is actually attached to the metal fittings on the back, and if you look back and forwards, you will find Boris, who has already put on the belt. So if you look back from that, you would see Boris, who had already put on his part of the belt. And then she's like, 1 second fur disappeared. Was it placed somewhere because it was in the way? Because he always wears like this boa type thing. They don't really explain it, but he doesn't like people to touch it. And so she's like, the fur disappeared. Was it placed somewhere because it was in the way? He usually carries it over his shoulder. She's like, the distance that his body has with hers seems to be close contact. And she's like, I was connected to his belt.
あとは ここと最後にここですね。
And the employee is like, here and here and finally here, you're ready to go. She's like, employees set the belt that she wore around the other waist, and then she was stunned that it was hard to move. Belts are also wrapped around her left and right ankle. She's like, I feel like I'm made of 4 people right now. When you get up here, there is literally no way to escape, she thinks to herself. She's like, I have to decide right now? Exclamation mark question. I wasn't prepared for death at the amusement park. This is too disliked of an idea. She's like, no, but ... And then she's like, I'm not ready, because I clicked the top button. And she's like, you have to decide, and I took a deep breath. She's like, I've already thought about it, ...
覚悟を決めてくれたみたいなのは嬉しいけど。
Boris is like, oh, I'm glad that you've decided, but...
なんだそりゃ。それじゃあ、俺たちがあんたをいじめてるみたいじゃねえか。
Because she told him she wasn't ready, Galen's even like, well, what is that about? Well then, it seems like we're bullying you if that's the way you're going to be. And she's like, you're not bullying, ... which I disagree with. I think they're bullying her. She's like, does it seem that I am not excited about being encouraged to have fun by you?
いや、今のところは見えねえけど、最初はみんなそうなんだ。あんたもしばらく後には笑顔でヒャッホイ最高って叫んでるぜ。
Galen's like, I don't see the excitement there. He's like, at first everyone is like that, but after a while they usually scream and shout, Hayu, Saiko! Like he's like, exclamations of joy. She's like, I can't, because I could die. She's like, don't let a person's character collapse without permission. She's like, don't let people steamroll you.
楽しんでこい、アリス。絶対気に入るだろうから。次は俺とも飛び降りてくれよ。
Galen's like, enjoy it, Alice. I'm sure you will love it. Please give it a chance.
俺ももっとやりたいよ。4、5回連続でやってもいいぜ、アリス。
Boris is like, oh, I want to do it actually more. I can do it 4 to 5 times in a row, Alice. Can't you? She's like, please do it alone. I won't stop you, ... And she's like, never to both of you. She's like, before that, you should also pray that it won't end in the first round of you going down. Because he's like, I like to do it 4 to 5 times. And she's like, no way. She's like, if anything should happen, ... She's like, would you absolutely protect me or you yourself, Boris? ... question.
何もないと思うけど、何かあっても任せといてよ。俺は注射猫だぜ。途中でロープが切れたって問題ないよ。
He's actually like, well, I don't think there's anything that could happen, but I'll leave it up to you if anything does. I'm a Cheshire cat, ? What a jerk. She's like, foo. Like, just exasperated. I looked at his confident golden eyes for a while and thought about it. I know the character of this type of bureaucrat well. She's like this political response or like politician's response that he gave. She's like, it would be useless to make noise against this situation. She's like, I understand, ... Then let's go.
やった！俺を信用してくれるんだ。
He's like, yes. Do you trust me? ? And she's like, you took it way too positively, because that's a no. And she's like, the truth is that I actually do trust as such. Of course, not completely. Because Boris isn't a man who is so confident that he can actually do anything.
任せてくれるなら十分だろ、ボリス。そんじゃ、ゆっくり足場に出るんだ。
Gallon tells him it's enough that if you leave it just to me, Boris. And she's like, ... A narrow scaffold overhanging was in front of you, and if 3 adults lined up side by side, it will be another full width of them. She's like, well, exclamation mark. And she's like, if you put your feet on it, the iron floor will make a hard sound. I looked down and then hurriedly raised my face back up. She's like, swallow and spit. Don't think about it. She's like, huh?
そうそう。ゆっくりな。少し手前で止まればいい。
Gallon's like, yes, slowly. Stop a little before the edge.
大丈夫。俺が後ろにいるよ。
Boris is like, okay, so are you behind me? Question mark. And she's like, I know. Me and Boris's waists are close enough to be in close contact because they connected the belts together, so I am behind him. And she's like, you can see that I am right behind him. She's like, She's like, oh yeah, what's this? She's like, I hurt from my heart. After all, I'm vulnerable to these people. She's like, what did they convince me to do? Large and gentle, but sometimes forceful. The landlord, Galland, has something troublesome going on. And she's like, a pink cat with a cynical smile and a fun touch. Boris, who is free and sometimes feels cold, but she doesn't hate it. She's like, they are special to me, so much so that I remained in this world. And she's talking about from the last game. Like, she didn't go with anybody, but she stayed for her friends. And she's like, because it was this world with special people, I remained. And she's like, I left the real world that I was born and raised in, my home, and remained in a world where I don't know whether it is a dream or reality. And she's thinking this to herself. She's like, one reason that made me choose this world, even if we know that there are many places that we will have a lot of trouble, we can't deal with rejection from the bottom of our heart. And she's like, it would feel too much like rejecting them if she left. She's like, so am I prepared? Or she's like, it may be a world where there are no boundaries with dreams, and it will become sweeter. If it becomes sweeter, then I'll acquiesce. Like, she'll just disappear into their world, basically. And she's wondering to herself here, am I prepared for death dives, or am I just being too self-defeated? ... question mark. And she's like, oh no, I didn't give up completely, did I? She's like, I don't want to die in such a place when I'm still so young. She's like, but... well... I can't help it. These are the people who flew me up here like this. In the world, my cohabitants. Like, she's like, in this world, my cohabitants. And it's a mistake that they like thrill and danger, but they protect me for the time being. And she's like, Galland and Boris know stuff that would and wouldn't harm me. And she's like, finally, my resolve breaks.
アリス、その辺で止まっておいた方がいいよ。
Boris cuts into her monologue, and he's like, oh, Alice, should I stop us around that? And he's talking about the edge. She's like, ah! And she's like, I suddenly returned to Boris, stomping his foot. If you notice, the tip is at the, he's right at the tip of the scaffold, right in front of you.
おいおい、危ねえな。そのまま飛んじまうつもりかと思ったぜ。
Galland cuts him off, and he's like, hey, that's dangerous. Did you think that you were just going to fly as it is right now? Like, right this second? Galland's voice came from behind, looking awkwardly over at us. He was also walking over to Boris. And she's like, is it alright that 3 people get on the standing board for the dive? Before jumping off, I'm confused by anxiety. Isn't it not safe?
Huh? 平気に決まってるだろう。そこまで脆い作りはしてないぜ。
And Galland's like, oh, I've decided it's okay. I'm not making them too brittle. Galland barely says this to her, but the bungee jump seems to be very confident. Like, it's solid. And she's like, oh, so ... Surely I've seen a number of decent attractions here. She's like, usually he does think of safety. And she's like, I'm thrown into the air, and I couldn't do anything about it. ... Exclamation mark. A cold wind blows from the front to my back, and my heart becomes suffocated, as if I was grabbed tightly.
なんだよ。怖いの？アリス。
Boris is like, what are you, scared, Alice? Boris's voice is hateful, she says. Now more ... And she's like, I'm actually not scared. She's like, but ... exclamation mark. It's not just scary bungee jumping. It's also an attraction here, so of course I'm screaming.
はいはい、わかってるって。ったく、本当に心配性だな、あんたは。
And Boris is like, yes, I know, you're really anxious, you are. And she's like, no, not in that context. Just as I said, Boris would not communicate well with me. He doesn't understand what I'm trying to say.
よし、それじゃあ飛んでみようか。
Boris is like, okay, then let's fly. Boris turned his arm around the belt wrapped around their waists, or our waists. And then when you have that grip, you can support both waists firmly, is what she's saying.
これなら安心だな。
He's like, is this safe? Like, does it feel safe? And she's like, ... Well, good that you're trying. And she's like, it's hard to say that it feels safe, but this is the best position for this.
ね、面白くねえな。おい、調子に乗るなよ、ボリス。
And he's like, I don't think it's funny, because Boris had grabbed her. Like, they hadn't gone over the edge yet, but he scared her really bad. And he, like, lifted her up.
焼くなよ、おっさん。大人げないぜ。
I think he's commenting that Gallon got jealous because he's, like, all over. And he's like, don't be ugly, Uncle or Osen, like, adult. Can't you grow up? And he's just like, exclamation mark. Boris banged my shoulders after having such a conversation in the usual way with Gallon.
さあ、行くぜ。目を閉じるなよ。1、2の。
And Boris is like, now, here we go. Don't close your eyes. 1 or 2. And she's like, wait, I'm not ready. She's like, skirt, you have to hold it down. So she's thinking of, like, the trivial matters now that she mentioned earlier. Like her hair and her skirt. She's like, I'm a woman too. I couldn't afford to worry about that when I fell with Peter, but I'm worried if Galland is watching from above. And she's like, I didn't care about Peter, but I care about Galland seeing. And he's just like, 3, we're going. And she's like, no! She's like, the sound of kicking off the floor pushes our bodies out, and our bodies are far away from the scaffolding, as if the scaffolding had been an illusion that had stopped for a moment. ... And she's like, oh, we're falling! Oh my gosh! She's like, the wind is sounding tremendous in our ears, and it nails us with the cold. And she's like, I feel it all over my whole body, which is receiving the wind. She's like, the feeling of floating hits my stomach, and it's not a scream that I have that's like deep inside my system. She's like, it feels like it's on that ratio though. And she's like, ah. She's like, it's not the same when Peter and I fell through the hole, but more realistic, and I was falling towards the ground. She's like, we're flying in the sky sideways, not upside down. This type was good because it would have been good if this rope was suspended, which was only attached by its ankle, or by their ankles. And Boris is like, this is refreshingly fun. Yeah, he's having the time of his life. She's like, a lively voice can be heard in the immediate vicinity. Immediately after that, she's like, personally, I was depressed about this. She's like, I don't want to do this. The rubber had fallen to a point where it could grow in the air. So it had some slack, and she's like, it feels like it's gently pulled, and then this time our body rises. She's like, thud, or like, goop. And then at first glance, the ground was very close. It is about the second floor of a building. She's like, our bodies go up and down several times as the thick rubber rope expands and then contracts. And she's like, ah! Ah! And she's like, wow, this is actually surprisingly fun, ... She's like, I don't hate screaming machines like this as long as they're safe. She's like, ...
ああ、終わっちゃったか。一回程度じゃやっぱ物足りないな。俺、まだまだいけるぜ。
Boris is like, okay, we're done. It's enough, or it's not enough it's enough at least once. But he's saying that we could go again, and she's like, please go alone, if you like. She's like, you can go anywhere, ... please. But don't get me involved. And Galen's like, oh, how was it? And he's calling out to them where they landed. Boris feels defeated, and she's like, Galen's voice is coming down from far above. Apparently, it doesn't have to be a death dive. She's like, we survived. ... Ha, is all she says. And this is later that night, so she's sleeping. And it says here, a different space with nothing. Like, to see. And she's like, it's an odd sight, but here I'm actually used to it in a dream. If the current world is a dream, then this is a dream within a dream. It's a space that I don't understand at all, but I've been here many times. Nightmare's like, oh, it seems like you had a really enjoyable experience. A nightmare comes by with a slightly better look than usual, and then laughs, like usual. She's like, I cursed the eye that was not hidden by his eye patch. She's like, don't laugh, thinking that it's just because it happened to someone else. She's like, even if you say that, I'm still angry. It's not foolproof when you joke about it. And she's like commenting on who he is. It's Nightmare. She's like, whenever I come here, he is there in the dream. And she's like, as the name suggests, Nightmare, he is dreamy. He is the one who repeatedly told me that this world is a dream. And it seems that you can go to reality in this world, but he lives in my dreams, and that's his reality. And he looks pale, also very unhealthy. She's like, he's no real nightmare, it's true, but he is genuinely unhealthy, ... He comments that even if you were telling me not to laugh, he's like, I can't help but read the sight, because he reads minds and hearts. And she's like, Nightmare, even you, ... As usual, you're trolling. The Nightmare who keeps laughing says this, while also his body is breaking down, and he said that he was sick, but she was stunned when he exhaled blood in front of her for the first time. She's like, Nightmare has an unhealthy body, and every day his life is filled with vomiting blood. However, he doesn't like doctors or injections, and so doesn't go to the hospital for this. She's like, yes, this won't change at all, so it's the same.
あの連中が変わるわけもないんだが、いかにも過ぎて、いや、おかし。
So Nightmare's actually commenting that that's right, like, us guys aren't going to change. It's too much fun. No, it's funny. And then he starts, like, coughing up blood. And she's like, he coughed while I was looking at his unhealthy appearance, and I already know that once this happens, he will not be fit for a while.
まあ、なんだかんだでうまくいっているようだからいいんだが。
And he's like, well, it's nice because you seem to be going along your way well. ... as he coughs some more. And she's like, hey, ... are you okay? If you have a hard time, don't try to force things to be okay. She's like, because he's going to vomit blood anyway, in parentheses.
どうせとはなんだ、どうせとは。うんざりしたように言わないでくれないか。
And he comments that she's mean, like, what is this? What is this? What is this? Like, why do you constantly think about this stuff? Like, why can't you leave me be when I'm tired? Because she's always harping on him inside her head, and she's just like, Chloe, reading my mind usually. And she's like, the answer comes back as you cough. And she's like, it's in my heart. Nightmare can read people's hearts. A dreamer who lives in a dream and can use mind reading. When I think about it again, I am quite strange to be close to such an abnormal existence. She's like, do you think that you're not fed up of it? Like, reading my mind. If you can read it, you know what I'm thinking. And she's thinking to herself that if we only met in dreams, it may be good, but you will vomit a few more times, and so it'll be a bloody scene. And she's like, it's funny that you're not fed up with this. And she's like, yes, this whole situation is sick. She's like, I'm a healthy girl and a decent maiden, ... He comments here that he's like trolling on her. Oh, an otome, so like a maiden? You think you're a maiden? And then he starts coughing up blood again. She's like, don't cough while laughing. She's like, you've read my heart again. ... She's like, I still feel annoyed at this, that he does this constantly. And Nightmare's like, it's because you, ... a maiden, ... Well, it looks like a good fit, ... He's like, you're not, but it looks like it would fit. And she's like, if you don't think it looks good, don't say it out loud. She's like, unlike Nightmare, I'm definitely healthy. And she's like, I'm not sure if I'm decent, though, ... And he's like, haha, yes, you know that. And she's like, I'm not decent, ... Well, anyway. She's like, a voice with a strict sense of taste is there. And she's like, yes, I'm not a flattering, decent maiden. My personality is sneaky and dark. Everyone will have notice of this kind of character. But above all, when you choose this world, they know. She's like, if you say this is decent, then your maidens of the world will get angry, ...
Yeah. 何もそこまで言うことはないが、そうだな。乙女なところもあるんだろう。
Nightmare's actually like, no, I don't have anything to say about that. And I'm gonna go on ahead and stop the video here, because I'm gonna record the next part right after this.